Hello, everybody, and welcome to our latest Tuesday comic review video. I'm Jason,
I'm Andy.
and we're with Infinity Flux Comics out of Chattanooga, Tennessee. But don't worry about where we're from. Don't worry about where you're from. This is an international broadcast across the internet. Every week, after we're done bagging and boarding the comics at our shop, we divide up the ones that we think people will be most interested in, some of which are ones that we choose because we're most interested
Yep.
in them. Uh, and we also sort of fight over which ones to go over. We read them all and we do a short review of each one. We try to make it relatively spoiler free. So we'll tell you if there's a major first appearance, a major death. We'll tell you the reasons why you might want to spec on it. But this is also for readers. So we'll tell you the general plot. We'll try to tell people why you might want this number one, why you might not, without telling you every little tidbit.
Yep.
So I'd say we got a pretty full week this week.
Yes, if not just for the variants, or I have a couple of piles of variants that are threatening to fall upon me and crush me.
I know. Yeah, you were organizing those for quite some time. I was ready and just waiting and waiting. So you can see some of the books in front of us that we're going to go over, but we have a lot more beyond that. So let's get going.
Yeah, so we finally have our first issue of Star Wars War of the Bounty Hunters.
It has begun after all that lead up.
Yeah, so we had the Alpha issue, which really set up the kind of why this event is happening. So, if you weren't aware, Han Solo has been frozen in carbonite. I feel like I'm about to reiterate the opening crawl of Return of the Jedi.
He has it.
So, this takes place when Boba Fett is transporting Han to Jabba to get his payout for it. And in the Alpha issue, something happens. Boba Fett gets sidetracked because of an incident, and Han Solo gets stolen. And now Boba Fett is like, I gotta get my money, I gotta get him back. And then we had a few prelude issues that were in Darth Vader, were in Bounty Hunters, were in the regular Star Wars, Afra, all the books they're tying in. And then finally we get to this moment, which kicks off the whole story. So there is a mysterious figure that now is in possession of Han. And it's funny because I actually got to read this book early, like a few weeks ago, but they cut out a few pages of it. And from reading this, I understand why. So there's this mysterious figure, and they basically put out a call to pretty much whoever they think would be interested in Han. And it's like, hey, we have him in our possession now, and we invite you all here to this planet we're on for a either an auction or whatever. But the other interesting thing that happens is maybe Han isn't the only thing that there had been a bounty out for. A bounty gets put on Boba Fett also, and that, of course, he does not take this lying down.
Yeah, no.
He gets attacked by a lot of his fellow bounty hunters. He's not too happy with who put the bounty out on him when he finds out. So this is super cool. I mean, it is pretty much non-stop action, but I like that they did the Alpha issue because that really set it up where this can get right into the story. It's not a lot of, oh, well, where are we currently taking place? What's everybody doing? It's like, no, we know that Han's been stolen, Boba Fett's getting him back, and he is on the hunt for him. This does reveal who the mysterious person, leader of an organization who stole Han from Boba Fett. And let me say, I was really, really surprised when I saw it.
Was really surprised.
I had, when I...
You surprised me with that.
Yeah, when I initially read this without the last few pages added on, I just saw this mysterious figure, and they're kind of cloaked and hooded. And I was like, I cannot figure out who this would be. I had my most wanted list in my head of, oh, well, with this person, it's someone I never considered, someone I didn't even put in the running for. But it is a character that people may be familiar with, but has not, I think maybe has only shown up in the comics, I mean, less than a handful of times. And when you find out, you'll know why. and there is people are going to be hunting this character's first appearance because I feel like this is bigger than just their appearance in this issue. It does say a lot for the future of kind of a certain sect of the Star Wars franchise going forward that a lot of people had been wondering what would happen with it. So if that's not cryptic and convoluted enough,
Is it too much a spoiler for you to say where their first appearance is?
I would say uh, look for the movie tie-in comics with Solo.
Okay.
I'll say that. So
That's as far as the hint
that's
can
as
go.
far as I can go, but you'll definitely want to be checking this out. I think this is really cool because I think this is, I mean, one of the biggest events Star Wars has had, outside of just movies. I think this is huge.
It's the biggest one since Marvel's acquired the comics.
Yeah, for the main continuity, we've had High Republic, but this is like, these are dealing with characters that are already established
Right.
and people are already invested
It's
in.
crossing over more of the comic.
Mhm.
They didn't have that many titles running till now, and it's crossing
Yes.
over all of them.
So, really, really cool to see where this goes. Of course, this has a ton of variants. How could it not? I'm sure every artist was jumping
So just
up and
clamoring.
down to do a variant for it. So we actually have the Kamikoli wraparound variant, which you can see. You've got kind of your rogues gallery of who's in the book and who's vying for Han. And there's a very interesting part where a character talks about why Han is so important, why so many people would want him. And it's a very interesting thing that, it's not like, oh, because he's got gold shoved in his ears. It's like, no, there's a bigger reason why people would want him. And when you read it, you're like, oh, yeah, that is true. So, really cool. So we got the Sarah Pacelli variant, which it seemed like this does happen. At first, I was like, this is a weird variant, but there's a reason for this variant that's really cool, with him punching Forlom in the chin. We have the John Tyler Christopher action figure variant. This is your straight up classic Boba Fett.
With that distressed armor, looking better
Yeah.
than when it's all nice and new.
Although this figure doesn't come with any weapons. It's a real shame. This one, which I think is a beautiful variant. This is the Pride Month variant by Babstar. Really striking to see this. And it's really cool we got Afra on the cover. Then we have some of our incentives. So we have a 1 in 25 Lionel Francis Yu variant that we are selling for $25. This one's awesome. This is the Cassidy trading card variant that we are also selling for $25. I believe that is a 1 in 25 also.
Yep. While supplies last.
Yes, very limited supply. I love this one, and I'm really fighting myself on should I get this one. So this is the 1 in 50 Pepe Larraz variant. It's super cool. And I think that's all of them. I think that's all for now.
All right, so I'm going to take us over to DC with what was my favorite read of the week. It is Nice House on the Lake, #1 of a 12-issue maxi series by James Tynion IV. You might have heard of James Tynion. He writes Batman, The Joker, Department of Truth, Something's Killing the Children, just a few titles that
little books.
a couple
Some
people
have heard
pick up.
of.
Yeah, we have some stragglers who come in and grab the 1 or 2 we have on the shelf. But no, obviously I kid. James Tynion is one of the biggest writers right now, and I can't believe he's launching another book. More than that, I can't believe how much I liked it.
Yeah.
This is one I don't really have to sell. People are going to come in, they're going to get it anyway, but I always give my honest opinion on the show. I really liked it. It was my favorite read of the week. I like horror. I also like the Twilight Zone. I have the whole Twilight Zone DVD set I've had since DVDs were a thing that I've watched multiple times. This has aspects of both of those things. Definitely a horror aspect, but even more so a Twilight Zone aspect. This is begging in a good way to be a horror movie or a TV show. That's what I would say. It has a wide cast of interesting characters in a lavish situation of peril. That's the best way I can put it. They're at a nice house by the lake.
Yeah.
Eventually.
It's not a junky house by the
Correct.
lake. This is a nice house. When you see it, it is this is an expensive house.
It is. This is not Camp Crystal Lake either. They're not at some summer camp or whatever. So let me tell you a little bit about what is going on in this. There is sort of our focal character at the beginning. Her name is Ryan Kane. And Ryan Kane has this friend named Walter. It's set back in the past. And they kind of, they're acquaintances. They run with the same group of friends, but it's sort of a wide friend group. They go out, they drink, they carouse, things like that. Well, her and Walter like to drink, and he likes to bring up sort of deep conversation things, like questions about life or death that you can only talk with, you know, sort of friends about late at night when you've been drinking. Things that you often don't want to answer yourself, but you want to hear people's answers to.
Yeah.
So I can't tell you what the question is. It would reveal too much. You'll just have to check that out. Anyway, fast forward later on, and this friend group has mostly lost touch with each other. They've grown up. They have careers going on, and Ryan gets a invite to a nice house on a lake by Walter, along with a bunch of the other friends. You can see in the message this has been sent out to many people. Mm-hmm. So she goes, and like you said, the house is super nice. She meets a lot of other people there, and as you meet them, they do the thing I really like where they all get a quick little bio.
Yeah.
It's not like a full page thing. It doesn't slow down the read. You get to learn who they are, what do they do, what do they like, and then you compare it with the dialogue. I think James Tynion, he really excels at his characters having different voices. Mm-hmm. So if he says somebody snarky, you read it and you're like, oh, good, now I can hear it because I saw it. I didn't have to see the character in 10 situations to figure that out. The question is, who is Walter really? Why did he gather them? He says he is their friend, but is he really their friend? And what much bigger thing is going on? It is revealed in the first issue. The setup is totally revealed by the end of the issue, and it's a big setup. It's a great big setup that has a lot to do with this life or death sort of existential question that Walter had with Ryan years ago, and that it seems maybe Walter's had with some of these other people. Maybe this question is going to come to fruition. And, what would you do if you were invited somewhere and told you were very special and you're in a special situation and you're lucky, and it's a situation you would never want? You wouldn't even wish this on an enemy.
Yeah.
Although, in a way, you are lucky. And that's the most I can say without ruining the premise, because it's a very strong premise. I can't wait for the next issue. Just very deftly written is the best way I can say it. A lot goes on in just the one little comic. It's not a double issue or anything like that. I highly recommend it. So let me show you the variant. This is the variant by Martin Simmons,
the artist from Department of Truth.
Yep. And this is something that is in the issue. It's not just, interpretational art there. And then here is the 1 in 25 Deladera variant we are selling for $40 while supplies last. Deladera did the #1 variant for Something is Killing the Children that is now going for a ton of money.
It's very interesting. I got a chance to read that back when we got like a preview of it.
Yep.
And it's so hard because someone was asking me earlier, like, oh, what's it like? Is it like a slasher movie type thing? It's like, I don't know if I could... It's a horror book that doesn't fit in your typical horror genres. That's why you saying Twilight Zone. It makes more sense. It's like a scary Twilight Zone episode, but for so many reasons that aren't just your typical scary for scary's sake or monster of the week or anything. There's more to it than that.
The situation is scarier than just if there was one villain killing people. And honestly, I don't know how... It seems there will be death, but I don't know how much and how frequent. We'll have to see with issue 2. This issue, not a lot of that here. Just more the very big overview story.
Well, let's continue that spooky comics, because this week we have the first in the new DC horror line, And the full title is DC Horror: The Conjuring: The Lover #1. So, as a lot of people are familiar, the Conjuring cinematic universe that encompasses Annabelle and the Nun and La Llorona,
Yeah.
so many things, kind of James Wan's brainchild, is getting its own comic, not an adaptation. This is a prequel to the upcoming film that comes pretty soon.
It comes out this week. Comes out
Is
this
that
Friday.
this Friday?
Yep,
Wow.
this Friday.
So it's really cool they got this out because this is a prequel to that, but not in the way that it's so heavily tied in that you feel like, oh, this is just kind of a cash grab.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this could easily stand on its own. This is going to be
what, 5 issues?
I believe a 5-issue
Yeah.
miniseries. So it's cool because it will tie in with the movie, but just in I don't want to say like the villain or whatever, but it doesn't have the Warrens in it. None of like the main cast, but it will give you a little bit more insight into what's going on in the movie. But like I said, this does stand alone, and this issue is really interesting. So it begins like a lot of good horror movies with a cold open of some kind of a ritual going on, and a lot of Latin is repeated. Some goats are there, um, and then you get your big 2-page spread that says "The Conjuring: The Lover." So they're very much treating this like a cinematic experience in a comic, which is really cool. So this takes place in 1981 in Danvers, Connecticut, and there is a girl named Jessica who you can kind of assume is maybe going back for her like second semester in college. She is not a fan of college, and her mom says, "Well, this is a great opportunity. You need to really, make the most of it. Not a lot of people get this opportunity." So you're already kind of put into the world of this girl, and her grades weren't good the previous semester, and so this year she's really going to focus on that. But through the entire thing, there's definitely there's stuff lurking in the shadows, very metaphorically and literally. So you can tell there's some kind of something haunting her behind her back. You've got a lot of those moments of something's about to touch her, she flips around, and oh, it's her friend type moments. So very cinematic horror in that aspect as well. It is very much of a setup issue, as in we don't get a lot of those like, oh, now the action's happening, or that she's getting drugged through the halls by invisible entity. None of that, but it is setting the stage for a lot of darkness to come. I really liked it. I thought, if you didn't even tie it to the Conjuring universe, this would be a great horror book that I'm really excited to read the rest of. Hopefully, they continue this because I think, the Conjuring can definitely just be a marquee sign for a lot of just interesting horror supernatural stories. But the other key thing about this issue too is there is a backup story by Scott Snyder. Of course, Scott Snyder of fame in every regard: Dark Knight's Death Metal, Batman,
Nocterra, which I'll be reviewing later.
And his focus in this is on the Ferryman, which I believe had an appearance in one of the Conjuring movies, just briefly, like this creepy guy who's got like coins in his eyes, and it kind of tells not necessarily an origin story, but a tale involving that entity. And it's really cool. It's just a one and done little story. Each of these issues is said to have a backup story by different creators, kind of focusing on a different aspect of the Conjuring universe and maybe some things we've seen before. So, highly recommend this, even if you aren't necessarily like a Conjuring super fan or you've seen all the movies. If you're just a fan of horror and supernatural horror, I think this is really, really good for that. I'm really excited about the next issue. And it's just one of those easy reads that, it doesn't, not that it doesn't take a lot of brain power because it's dumbed down, but it just flows really naturally. The dialogue is easy. It's really, really cool. So we have a variant cover for it, which is really cool. That's like the VHS cover. even have a little sticker at the bottom, like the Goodwill price on it. And then we have the 1 in 25 brown variant. And we are selling this to our customers for $40.
Yeah, so most everybody who works here has a great love of movies. We talk comics number one. Movies might be number two or three.
Yeah.
And Megan and I particularly, we love movies. We were both in a film club at the same university together that I started, and then she was the president after me. So, you know, we have a lot of movie conversations. We like horror stuff. We've seen all the Conjuring movies. So the idea that DC might now start releasing little comic series tie into movies, I'm just excited by that. Like,
Yeah.
I haven't read that, but I know I'm going to.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to go see the movie too.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a really neat sign. I hope they start doing that with more movies. Marvel, of course, we're doing the prelude comics to their movies. Like, it's just a good time to like comics and movies.
I think it's cool too because, as you know, you can tell on this, it actually has the new DC horror label on the corner, and they said that's like a new thing, just like how we have Black Label. I was talking to somebody earlier that maybe this is taking the place of like the Joe Hill.
Yeah, right.
Because you know the Joe Hill books were really good, and they're along the same line. But maybe this is a little bit wider of a title than just tying it to Joe Hill. It's tying it, you know, you could have any creator and it doesn't, you know, like, well, is it tied in with his universe?
I forgot to mention that because Nice House on the Lake is also a Black Label book.
It's weird, so it's like, but why isn't that one?
Joe Hill, where'd you go? I mean, I like his stuff a lot, but
it's going to be interesting to see because now we have like multiple DC like horror, darker imprints to see why did you put this one over here.
So the next one I'm going over, I think this one is already sort of like super popular before it's even launched. I've been reading in the news. This is Basilisk by Cullen Bunn. I'm a big Cullen Bunn fan. Mm-hmm. He was writing like 20 comics a week for a while, a couple years ago, and they were all like pretty quality. Mm-hmm. This is the latest Boom series. Unlike most of the new Boom series, most of them are released as like a 1 of 5, and then if they're popular enough, they keep them going. Like Wind has recently, continued. This one is an ongoing comic, as far as I know. From what I believe, this is just ongoing. So this is the number 1. It's just releasing, and I know it's not October, and we did not plan this, but this is yet another horror-based comic. Wow. It's somewhat horror though. This one at least, because there's the horror that has some supernatural. This one has powers enough that, at least it has powers in it. So what are those powers? It has to do with the 5 people that you see on the cover here. Okay? The 5 people that you see on the cover, they have powers related to the 5 senses. So we're talking about sight, hearing, taste, smell, and touch. But these powers are deadly. We only get to sample, I think, 2 of them in this. We only get to see the usage of 2 of the 5 sense powers in this. So it starts out, and these 5 people, they're in sort of hospital scrubs. They just kind of wander out from nowhere. It's really creepy. The art's really good too. I'm going to talk about the art later. But they wander out from nowhere in these hospital uniforms, and they look almost confused. And people are trying to help them, but you get a sense things do not go well. So then you go a few years into the future, and you're following this girl who is basically trying to hunt them down. It turns out that they have killed a lot of people using these powers. A lot of people in small towns have died to them, and this girl, she is one of the survivors. Something terrible has happened to those close to her. We don't get her full story yet. She's been hunting them, and one of the 5, the one that is most seen on the cover, who wears a veil over her eyes, I wonder what sense her power has to do with, gets tracked down by her. And the question is, why is she by herself? Where are the other 4? Which gets answered in this. And is there a chance that maybe she can be coerced into helping or changing? Why did they kill all those people? Did they mean to? So a lot of questions raised in the first issue. It's one of those issues I really enjoyed it, but at the end I was like, oh, I need a little more. I wish
Mm-hmm.
this had started with a double issue, but I thought it was very strong. The art I particularly thought was strong too. The artist, his name is Jonas Scharf. The art in this is fantastic. If you think the cover looks good, you're gonna like the interiors. Just a lot of feeling in the art, a lot of atmosphere set. Yet it's still all very very clear,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I like. As much as I like interpretational art, I like to know what I'm seeing, but also have that atmosphere kind of dripping in. And that is sort of what I would say about the first Basilisk. Is a really good setup. The villain's powers really interest me. I can't wait to see what the rest of the sensory powers they have are. So we got some variants for this. This is the variant by Christian Ward. And there we have the one character who is being hunted in this one, who not all's resolved with her. She is going to be sticking around. So it's not just sort of a hunt people down, kill them book.
Yeah.
There's something building here. Here is the 1 in 25 Albuquerque variant for $30 for people who buy through us. And then here is the 1 in 50 Ward variant. We're selling for $55. It's that one variant, just the virgin version of it. And then there was a 1 per store variant, which is, of course, the A coverage, the virgin variant of that we are selling for $40.
It's amazing that Boom keeps cranking
Quality.
these out, and it's quality each
Yeah.
time.
It is. This is a quality book.
Mm-hmm. Super cool. Well, one that is just crazy. This week we got Tankers #2. So this is from Bad Idea, which, as people may or may not know, is limited release to
Just a few stores.
just a few
like
stores.
a few hundred stores.
Yeah.
I think it's like less than 200 stores.
Yeah, with all the
Or
people
less than
who
300
can't
less than
sell them
300.
anymore. So this was our, I believe, the second release from Bad Idea was Tankers #1, and this follows a team of just your most 80s stereotyped action movie characters in their mech suits. They're sent on a mission from this big oil company back in time to prevent the dinosaurs from dying by deflecting the meteor that's going to extinguish the dinosaurs, make them extinct. So there will be more fossil fuel in the future. It is a horrible idea. It's so funny, and this is written by Robert Venditti, and you can tell like he knows like this is a
he's being funny.
He's being funny, and I love it that it's so just all out there. So in this one, we found out at the end of the previous one that they succeeded. They, of course, they had to fight off many dinosaurs, but they did manage to deflect the asteroid, the meteor, out of the way. And the original idea was, well, this will allow a couple more million years to go by, and dinosaurs, well, there'll be more of them, so we can use their remains for fossil fuel. But then the meteor will come back, and the scientist says, however many years later. And of course, this was a terrible idea to begin with, and maybe his calculations were a little off. The drivers of the tankers, these mech suits, show back up in their present day and in Texas, where they think they should arrive at the middle of like one of their facilities, and they are surrounded by advanced dinosaurs who have evolved over the millions of years to become kind of like dragons, but these dinosaurs are bulletproof. They can spit acid. They are just the ultimate version of dinosaurs. And it is just really, it's funny because there aren't really any heroes in this, but that's kind of okay because you just want to see what crazy kind of shenanigans they get into. And this is presented as, very actiony, like not your traditional comedy book, but I feel like it's the way we can look back at 80s action movies like Tango and Cash and be like, that movie's actually pretty funny given the situations they find themselves in. So this is very much like that. Um, just there's some puns that are made that are great. Um, they do find the oil company that did send them out originally. Of course, because of the change of time, a lot of things have changed, and they are given a new mission, which is just as ridiculous, maybe more than their first mission that involves time travel. It's immediately when you hear it, you go, "That is a terrible idea. That will not work in your favor." But even still, you go, "I can't wait to see what happens with this."
Yeah, Andy told me the solution. They went back in time, and what they did ended up with something worse. Well, how do you solve that? The idea they have is so dumb. Like, if you write down a list of the 10 dumbest things, it's probably the number one.
It's like the
on
most
the list.
obvious thing, but without giving it any thought past, hey, maybe this would work. So, I mean, great issue. I really love the first issue. I love this one. I believe this one's only a 3-part series,
I think so, yeah.
which is almost a shame because I love the tone of this book, which I haven't seen really before. This kind of over the top action, but with the underlying humor of it. This also has a backup story in it, which I was not expecting. Uh, that is, I believe, was teased in the original little booklet for it, which I thought was going to be an ongoing, but this is just a one and done story with very minimal dialogue about a caveman who goes through all these trials to get a shell off of the beach. And of course, he's fighting dinosaurs, he's fighting all of these primordial things to make it back to his family. And it's actually a very heartwarming story with great art. It was a nice surprise when I got to the end of Tankers and there was this other story. It was kind of a cool down story after Tankers, but still really good. And I love this kind of. I've gotten this a few times with Bad Idea books that have these little extra stories in them that are maybe could be expanded upon later. Maybe they're just one and done, but
full of surprises. Like, anytime their stuff arrives, we might as well just turn to the back now.
Yeah, and I think that is what's really cool about this. I think everyone who picked up the first issue will really want to read this one. I think they'll enjoy the little backup story in it too. And as this company said, no variant covers.
Yep.
No, this isn't going to be printed in any trade.
No, never collected.
Never collected. So this is it.
It's for comic people.
It is for comic readers and lovers, and I think that's awesome. Mm-hmm. So Tankers #2. Hopefully your store has it. If not, maybe you can get it.
Sign up with us.
You can sign up with us, and
There'll
we
be details at the end of this video screen on how to get in touch with us.
Yeah.
Okay. So my 3-in-1 review of all the Heroes Reborn stuff that is out this week. I have really been enjoying Heroes Reborn. It is not going to change the face of the Marvel Universe or anything like that. It doesn't promise that it's going to, you're going to save the day and all that. It is a very sort of what-if story about a different reality in which the Avengers were never formed. Instead, you got the Squadron Supreme, who are pretty much like a Marvel version of the Justice League analog. So issue #5, I've talked about this every week because this is a weekly series, so I'll go into this quickly. Issue 5 goes over Nighthawk. He is basically the Batman of the Squadron Supreme. And in this issue, Luke Cage is the commissioner of Washington, D.C. And this is a Luke Cage who doesn't have his powers because something happened. I mean, he's a commissioner. Luke Cage has powers because he was in prison for a crime he didn't commit, and he did some experiment, and that's how he got him. Well, in this, it never happened. So a powerless Luke Cage is basically Commissioner Gordon. Nighthawk is pretty much Batman. By day, though, Nighthawk is a Washington, D.C. congressman. Now, D.C. is a district, and so the congressmen of D.C. don't actually get to vote. They get to be there, but they don't get to vote. So they're considered, there's a joke in this, they're considered sort of the weakest politician in DC. But then by night, he drinks his potion and he becomes the most powerful hero in DC. So it's a really fun read. So in this, he's like literally given a speech. He gets called away and sends in like a robot duplicate to finish his speech. There's more jokes to it than that, but I just have to tantalize. I mean, Jason Aaron, he is just having fun with these books. So Nighthawk ends up having to go to Ravencroft to stop sort of an uprising of the patients, which is led by the Goblin. And the Goblin is sort of one of his main enemies because so many parts of the Marvel universe we've known, they're taking pieces of it and they're slinging it onto these characters. Mm-hmm. So Nighthawk, as much as he's sort of a Batman character, well, he's also a Spider-Man character. And the Goblin, of course, has this was in issue 1, so this is not a spoiler, but in the past, he killed his sidekick, which was Falcon, a la sort of Gwen Stacy. And in this, Gwen Stacy's still alive. Well, now the Goblin has got Gwen Stacy, and he has to try to stop him. He also has this new black suit that he found on Warworld not long ago. And is the suit going to help him, or does it have its own goals? So once again, yeah, lot of components going on. And also, what does the Goblin, as crazy as he is, he's in Ravencroft, he's mad, he has these crazy thoughts about reality and what might actually be wrong with it. And, you know, if he tries to tell Nighthawk, is Nighthawk going to listen to him? This has happened in a lot of the other ones, too, where a villain actually kind of knows what's going on, and it's up to the hero to decide, do I believe him? Or even if it's true, like this definitely happened with Hyperion. This is Hyperion was like, Hyperion, reality's wrong. And Hyperion gave it a lot of thought, and he's like, well, maybe reality is wrong, but I like this one, so I'm going to keep it. Anyone who tries to change it, I'm going to beat into the ground. Some interesting stuff. It's all coming to a head. The backup story has Captain America and Blade. They're gathering up the few people who know about the real reality. Well, they approach T'Challa, and you'll just have to read to see where that goes from there. So let's see. We got a couple variants for this one. I guess I'll just leave it here while I show off the variants. The first variant is the trading card variant with Nighthawk on it. The next variant is the action figure variant, also with Nighthawk on it.
I like how each issue is spotlighted him, and then the variants have also followed that format.
For sure. And then this is the Stormbreakers variant, the Cabal Stormbreakers variant. And we have the 1 in 25 Kyle Hotz variant for $25. But there are also 2 one-shots out this week I'd like to talk about. The first one is American Knights. Instead of Marvel Knights, it's American Knights. And right there you see Luke Cage. Once again, he is powerless. He is a commissioner. This one also has to do with Nighthawk. It's a little bit more street level. It's sort of, you know, it's right down to the fact that Nighthawk has like a hawk signal that the commissioner can flash and he'll show up. But look at Daredevil in the background and look on his chest. Something very different happens in this issue with Matt Murdock. It's a Matt Murdock I've never read about that I'm going to tell you some about, but not too much about. So pretty much, like I said, this is very street level. It has to do with street level intrigue and action. It's not the super heroics. It's more that sort of thing. Matt Murdock is not blind. He is not a lawyer. And he is not Catholic. In fact, he is very religious, but he worships a deity like you've never seen before. So you'll have to read the issue to see it. These are all 40-page one-shots, so you get a real full story in each of these. I guess the most I can say in this is, can Luke Cage help save Matt Murdock's mind or his soul from who he's worshiping? And if you guys have read the other Heroes Reborn, you may have a guess as to who or what he's worshiping. It gets brought up a lot. And it gives a whole nother reason why he wears the red suit. That's the other hint I'll give. There is a variant to American Nights by Shalvey. Okay, and then the last one shot, this is probably the most fun one. This is Marvel Double Action Heroes Reborn. So once again, it's a 40-page one shot, but look at the style it is done in. The art is done by Dan Jurgens, who of course used to do lots of comics all through the 70s and 80s.
See, Dan Jurgens that killed Superman.
That's right, the death of Superman. So they are trying to emulate a reprint of an old issue. So, it's kind of Death of Gwen Stacy.
Yeah.
That's generally what they're going for. So it's like, okay, well, Death of Gwen Stacy gets reprinted in this. And so this one I suggest you read before Heroes Reborn #5. If you read after, it's not too messed up, though. This goes over the death of Falcon. We already know Falcon died. This tells the full story, what went on with the Goblin and him. It has lots of asides to previous issues that never exist. If you enjoy reading old comics, you're going to really like it. I think a lot of effort went into this. It was written by Tim Seeley. Let's see, what else I have to say about it?
It does have those fun ads at the bottom, too, the old comics
Correct.
had that's like ads for other comics or weird things that in this universe don't exist. But you could tell Tim Seeley had just as much fun writing, like, what are these fake storylines that I'm going to allude to? And
it even ends the way a lot of comics used to. When a character dies now, they'll have like a whole series about it. But in the past, there would just be like a 2-page candlelit vigil, and that was it. This ends that way, and there is a fake letters page. And
so
I like
good.
Yeah, the alternate reality fake letters page is always really cool. We have the variant done. This is the Woo variant.
That one's great, too. I mean, the colors, everything.
Yep. So that's my my little roundup. Heroes Reborn only has one more issue left. But it's not too late to get into it.
Was that the last of the one-shots, or we still have some of the one?
We definitely have some more because Wolverine and Final Flight has not come out yet.
I love, too, that Heroes Reborn, the main series, has also kind of been like one-shot stories.
And it has about each character.
Yeah, and then we have these, and the single-issue one-shot stories are sometimes just as good as the main one. It's like this whole thing is, you can pick up an issue and probably have fun with it.
Yep, I think that's true.
So, moving back to Marvel, this is it. This is our first issue in the Hellfire Gala event. And I will preface this by saying that I am a big fan of X-Men, but X-Men as of late has been pretty hard to keep up with. There's just so much. So I don't get to read every issue. I read them sporadically. I have there's a lot of customers that come in and are like, oh, you need to read this issue and stuff. So I mostly keep up with it through customer recommendations and everything, but we always have so much stuff to read, it's hard to read everything.
Right.
But I was really interested in this event, mostly just because when they released the costume designs, I think that was how a lot of people got really interested, was like, these are incredible designs.
Doing that preview book where you got to see a taste of all what everyone would wear.
Yeah. And I will say, this definitely feels like the first part in a story. This could have easily have had like Hellfire Gala 1 through 6, or the main event books. But this actually just go through each of the X titles. But this one definitely feels like a part 1, and it is Marauders, but it doesn't feel. I would say your main Marauders cast isn't as in this as much as the title would have you think. This is actually mostly about Emma Frost, and I think, of course, that is pretty much the most interesting and important character in this whole Gala situation. So, essentially, the mutants and Krakoa have established themselves so well at being their own people, their own nation, that they kind of want to show off a little bit by throwing this extravagant party and inviting everyone to attend. And when I say everyone, I was not expecting everyone. But some of the people they invite are the Avengers, which there is a great part where they actually have to wear like Krakoan flowers is basically their invite. So they each have to like kind of put them on their lapel to go through a portal. And Captain America gets his, and one of the mutants that's letting him through is like, this is like basically your ticket, and it's your invitation to any of the after parties. And Captain America's like, I'm not one for after parties, but he like walks to the door. It's like knock knock. It's like the goofiest like square Captain America, but it's done really fun. Um, and then people like the Fantastic Four come through the portal. That's super interesting because, of course, we had the X-Men versus Fantastic Four event.
They pretty much got kicked out and told to
Yes.
stay out because
So-
of them going after Franklin Richards.
Yes, and that is all. That one miniseries is even alluded to a bit
Right.
between Kitty Pryde and Franklin Richards. Really developed a close bond in that,
Right.
where she was kind of the only person that would listen to Franklin.
Mm.
And that is all touched upon, which is, I thought, it was a great scene in here. But they all, the Fantastic Four kind of talk about their reasons for being there, and it's for Reed Richards, it's more like, I want to see what's going on here, as you
Yeah.
can imagine. But even Doctor Doom walks through the gate, and he brings some of the funniest bits in this, because no matter what room Doctor Doom is in, he assumes he's the best person in that room. And that is just, it's great. In this fancy party where everyone's dressed up really fancy, and
Does he dress up?
no, of course not.
Okay.
He
I
already
was
looks the
wondering.
best he can
Yeah,
be.
okay.
He is the most refined.
Mm.
And it's just great. All the moments with him in are great. And that's what makes it almost feel like a Marvel event rather than an X-Men event, is because you get Ghost Rider is in this.
Wow.
And Iron Man comes to the party, and that, each of them have like a little scene that's super interesting about why they're there and kind of what they kind of hope to get out
That
of
sounds
this
a
party.
lot more than just a Marauders book.
I know. That's why it's like,
That's
this is Marauders.
Number 21.
I almost expected this level stuff from Planet Size X-Men, but the whole thing, this one out of the few issues that came out this week, is the best at kind of setting up the party and introducing you to some of the characters who are going to be pretty big in it. It mostly follows Emma Frost as she hobnobs with a lot of dignitaries from different nations. She has some moments with Captain America. You can definitely tell that she is trying to put on the best face of Krakoa, along with multiple outfit changes, which are all incredibly awesome. But there seems to be more to it than meets the eye, as I'm sure everyone expected with this gala. There's a lot of telepathy conversations going on between characters who do have that ability, that it kind of makes it seem weird that they're circumventing certain people to not hear what they have to say. There's a lot of talk about plans. The term fireworks is used a lot. Emma Frost is like, oh, we'll wait till they see the fireworks.
Okay.
I won't give away much more, but there is a time jump in this to kind of when everyone's leaving the party. And apparently something has happened during the party that you only get people's reactions to, but not what it was. I love this issue. I was like, I told Jason, this is probably one of my favorite issues I've read since House and Powers of X, because I feel like there's some truly X-Men stuff in this, just with interactions and how characters act. And there's one last thing. There's a great scene where it cuts to like a balcony on Krakoa, and a lot of the younger mutants are shooting dice. And Ben Grimm walks up, and he's like, hey, what are y'all doing? And they're like, oh no. And he's like, not inviting me to throw some bones. And he says, it's gambling time, and throws some
Oh
dice. It
man.
is, I mean,
He's from Yancey Street. Of
yeah,
course they're
this
gambling
is
on
so
Yancey
good.
Street.
So definitely read this issue first because, real quick, I'll show you. There's the variants, which one of the best of the kind of runway connecting Dodderman variants. This is Emma Frost. She does wear this costume. She wears the one on the front of this. She wears a whole nother costume. She really goes through the outfit changes in this. There is the connecting variant, the Lolly concept variant. There is the Pride Month variant with Iceman. There is the 1 in 50 Finch variant that we are selling for 40. This one is awesome. This is the 1 in 50 design variant of Emma Frost. This one is also 40. That's a super interesting costume they wear. A lot of them aren't super practical. There is the 1 in 50 Jimenez Pride variant that's the version of the other one. But real quick, I want to talk about the second and third parts. There's X-Force, which follows... this is a little bit more on point with X-Force. So Domino, Wolverine, your X-Force team are actually running security at the party. They have like a home base that they're monitoring everything from. But I will say this, in each of these issues after Marauders, moves the story just a tad bit, which is really interesting. It adds, each one adds another thin layer to what's going on. They'll show you a little bit more and a little bit more. There is something going on this that if you didn't think the X-Men were kind of messed up at this point, you know, they've got this certain attitude that's very, very uncomfortable, I would say. This issue, something happens, something is done that really calls into question, like, you may be trying to do this for the right reason, but this is a really, really messed up way of going about it. So, really, really cool X-Force issue. Of course, one of the people who wasn't invited was Deadpool, and he tries to crash the party, and Wolverine will have none of that. So, also some really fun stuff in that. And then,
I feel bad for Wolverine in that. Even though I'm sure Deadpool gets hurt a lot, still, like, he just...
So there is the connecting variant, Kitty Pryde. There is the Kasara design variant. You see Professor X on the end, which has a very interesting moment where a lot of the telepathy is going on, and he asks one of the X-Men. He says like, "What are you talking about?" And they were like, "Remember, you told us that you didn't want to know." And he's like, "Oh yeah, thanks." And it's really weird. And finally is Hellions, and we actually are sold out of the. At least it went to all the pull boxes. So many people added it because of this event that I only have the variants to show. But this is Hellions number 12. That was the Segovia concept, and the connecting with Rogue. This one is more, if you were reading Hellions, this involves way more of the cast. It feels a little bit more tied in with their main series. And, but you have some characters witness these fireworks that Emma Frost teased in Marauders. And still not everything is revealed, but like I said, there's a little bit more and a little bit more. So even if you haven't been reading X-Men for a little while, I think this is either a great jumping on point or probably just a really cool story to check out, because I really, really enjoyed this one.
So, Batman 109 is out today at stores that sell DC on Tuesday. Out everywhere else tomorrow. It is another Very eventful issue. And I'll tell you, that's what I want for my Batman. For my Batman, I want eventful things going on every issue. Don't slow play it. Let me have stuff happening. So let's look at the cover because I can tell you things that, you know, are on the cover.
Yeah.
It's not really a spoiler. So this issue does have Batman's first head-on meeting with Simon Saint. The scene you're seeing here, it does play out. Also in the background there, that's Peacekeeper 01. That's right. This issue also is Batman and Peacekeeper 01's first meetup and battle.
Well, they get right into it.
Correct. Yeah, they really do. And that's just some of the issue. So a few of the things I can tell you, someone has been planting bombs around Gotham and, you know, exploding them. That's happened the last few issues. Lately, Batman went undercover into this group called the Untitled Collective to see if it was them. And he kind of found out that they weren't the ones doing it. Well, in this issue, he finds out that they are being set up. There's still bombs going off. And now that he's made friends with the Unsanity Collective, or at least with Molly Miracle, what can he do to sort of help, I guess, them at least not get in trouble for what they're not doing? Because they are doing some illegal things. They're just not doing those illegal things. And why is somebody trying to turn the city against them? Are they trying to use them as a scapegoat? You know, so that intrigue starts to build in this issue. Also going on, Harley Quinn is hanging out with Ghostmaker. There's a reason that the two of them are together, and they have some really good scenes in
I'd
this.
say he's got to hate her. She's the opposite of him.
It's very interesting for you to say this. He's very calm with her, and Harley, you know, he's interested in Harley because she used to be this brilliant psychiatrist, but then she starts going out with the Joker, and she becomes who she is. Meanwhile, as he's information from her, she in her more blunt way is like, I see what you're doing. You're going to tell me things about you. Because Ghostmaker is also a really sort of withheld individual. In it, he shows her his version of the Ghostmaker cave. So it's like his version of the Bat Cave. And let's just say, if you thought Ghostmaker wasn't already in competition with Batman, this issue will leave there no doubt. He is totally competing with Batman over the cave, over what's in the cave, over Batmobile. It's pretty funny. But the discussion him and Harley have about who they are, why they're doing what they're doing, the fact that both sort of, are they members of the Bat family? Are they not? You know, they're definitely outskirt members, if anything. That all comes up during a really neat scene where they also do some fighting, which you'll have to see. So a lot going on. On top of that, who is the gardener? The gardener was revealed last issue. She was very smartly dressed in her red suit. She had her dogs that were made of foliage.
Yeah.
Well, the identity of the gardener is revealed in this one. What is her connection to Ivy? That is revealed in this one. And where is Poison Ivy? What's been going on with her? That is also revealed in this issue.
Man, and this is just a normal-sized issue.
Yeah. So that's how I like my Batman, eventful. And James Tynion's like, we're just going to keep it popping, keep it going. Then there is a backup story. So that's all the A story, which is fantastic. The backup story, it's the same that they did last time. They're doing these backup stories of the Ghostmaker's past, where they're building up his rogues gallery. They're showing, okay, he went up against this villain. So it's a new villain you haven't seen before, going up against Ghostmaker, and that's sort of what that is. And that was a fun story too. It's the art in the backup story is very manga inspired. And I even feel like the A story has like tinges of that now.
Yeah.
And I don't mind that. To me, I think they're trying to get new generations of readers into Batman. And, you know, good. If that works, that's great. I don't know about you guys. I have nieces and nephews. If you know younger people, they love manga.
Yeah.
So we love our American characters. We like our storytelling. That's more my speed. But if it has to have a little edge of that to get people into it, to get my niece and nephew into it, why not? I think my niece would probably be more interested in the Ghostmaker story by the visual of it than the Batman story. But I think if she checked it out, she would like them both a lot.
Yeah, Jorge Jimenez, the main artist of Batman, is heavily influenced by manga and He's done a lot of like homages in them. If you see like in his Superman, he did a big homage to Dragon Ball Z in it, which is a big thing, and you can tell by just like the speed his characters move and all of that that I feel like this is definitely an art style we're going to see more of, this hybrid,
Yeah.
because that is kind of where the younger readers are, is this hybrid
and
art.
I don't mind it. I've heard some people act like it's very decisive, but I will say to me it's still very clear.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I don't like it, is when the art gets like I can't tell what happened
Yeah.
there. Or people start doing things with their body that just look weird and messed up. I can tell what's happening, and I grew up watching Vampire Hunter D, the real early anime stuff.
Akira.
So yeah, I mean, Batman, where did he get trained? He got trained over in the Orient. Like,
Yeah.
why not? So here is the variant by the very talented Joshua Middleton. Trying to get where it's not glaring so bad with my bag. And so that is Batman 109 in a nutshell. Still moving along really good. One of my favorite reads every week.
Awesome. Well, for DC this week, I read Suicide Squad. So this is issue number 4. We are into the crossover between Titans Academy, Teen Titans Academy, and Suicide Squad. So I won't spoil too much of this because we're pretty deep. So a lot of the stuff that happens in it is pretty big to the overall what's going on. But I will say we get the most of Red X I think we've got from any of these in this issue. And for the trained eye, you may pick up on a lot of things that he does. So he actually comes face to face with Amanda Waller. You'll understand why I hesitated that. Of course,
So face to face or mask to face?
Mask to face, possibly even mask to hologram. But but anyways, they do are put in a position where they can speak to each other. Amanda Waller says something really, really interesting about Red X, where she says that he is as intelligent in like the battlefield as Batman. And that is not something I even think DC publishers would allow to be thrown around. You know, there's like this set level of hierarchy in abilities. We know that there is in like intelligence because we've got like it goes back and forth. Is the number one most intelligent is Lex Luthor or Batman, and they kind of battle it out. We have Mr. Terrific that I believe is the third. But that's a thing that is discussed. So to put Red X up there, anyone who's in that category has had run-ins with Batman before. Batman knows all the smartest people, or he's trained the smartest people. That's a little hint to maybe uncovering the mystery of Red X. There's other things that happen. There's even ways that Red X moves, because you do see him in action in this, which is really, really cool. That harken to a lot of very familiar movements of, maybe some characters in the Bat family. So it doesn't reveal who Red X is in this, but a lot happens that I feel moves the character forward in a lot of ways. There's also some really interesting stuff that happens with Peacemaker. Not Peacekeeper, Peacemaker. I always have to like double check what I'm calling him because we have Peacekeeper now.
Correct. Yeah.
But a lot of interesting things with him, and there's a run-in between Red X and the Talon that's on the Suicide Squad. That's also very interesting and may reveal some stuff. So I think this is going to be a key issue in the detective mystery of who Red X is. On top of that, this still continues to be Teen Titans Academy and the Suicide Squad. I think are both some of the best reads from like your big two companies right now, and I highly recommend it. Also, you've got this really awesome variant cover, and this scene kind of happens with Red X. So definitely check out Suicide Squad #4.
All right, so I read Nocterra #4. This series is not slowing down. If you like 1 through 3, this is another excellent issue. So in it, we have Val, our main character there, who drives the rig, and Bailey, who is the young girl she was trying to help her get to her destination. The two of them have to try to get the sun lantern to stop the change, the shadow change from overtaking Val's brother. So Val's brother's been infected since the beginning, but it's getting really bad. And so they stop in this town called Tipton, and they actually get out of the rig. So we get some on foot sort of adventures with them, which is cool. You know, I like how this story can be told Mad Max style.
Yeah.
Some of the issues are just in the vehicle, but it's a big enough vehicle that you can have interaction.
Mm-hmm.
Things are happening in the vehicle, but then amongst vehicles. This one, more than half the story happens off the vehicle as they're adventuring to get the sun lantern, and we get to see more of the darkness creatures. You know, we know they're there. We've seen some, but we get to see some more. And this issue sort of confirms that there are differences between them. And in fact, it confirms the humanoid ones are the more dangerous ones. My guess is because they still have human intelligence to some degree, but I don't know. That's not revealed. That's just me talking about something that I've read and I'm thinking about. There's also more backstory for Val. They keep going back to sort of the day this began and then what happened after and what happened with her and her brother. The parents are in this locked room swearing that they're not going crazy and they're not turning to shadow things, but do they let them out? Do they not? So more of that backstory happens. And by the end of the issue, a new character gets a first appearance who joins them, who appears to be a pretty major character.
Wow.
So that's my quick summary on that. Here is the variant by Tony Daniel. And here is the other variant by Jenny Frison.
Such a great variant.
Oh, yeah.
Cool. And is it ongoing or is it a mini-series?
It's ongoing.
Okay. I was about to say, because if they're just introducing big characters and be like, I really hope this isn't like only 6 to 12 issues.
This is a really interesting world of what cities are left with light and what places has the light just died out in and which ones have been in the dark for a while. Mm-hmm. It's interesting.
I love good world building. So I checked out this new book from Aftershock called Out of Body. This is by Peter Milligan, who has been around for quite a while, writing for a lot of different companies, some really, really good stuff. This is a very different story. It throws you right. Like, when I started, I actually, stopped, looked at the cover and be like, this isn't issue 2, is it? Because this doesn't have any of your, slow opening where let's open up on a building and then let's get a little closer and then let's explore. This is just dialogue out the gate and they're just throwing words around and I'm like, oh, okay, we're really getting in here. So it starts off with this girl who you can kind of tell is a clairvoyant or a medium that can see or speak with the dead, and she gets interrupted by maybe her mother or someone who tells her oh, this person on the street says that there's a ghost hanging out in their garden and they need you to go talk to him and stuff. So automatically you're like, okay, I'm trying to get my bearings in this. This is interesting. And then it shifts to a character named Mr. Collins. I forgot what his first name is, but Collins. And he is in a hospital bed. He's all bandaged up. And there's all the nurses and stuff around him talking about, that he is in... He can't hear them. He's talking to, his wife that, oh, sorry, he can't hear you. And she's like, do you think, that he can understand anything I'm saying? Is his brain functioning? And they're like, no. He's pretty far gone. And the whole time in captions, he's going no, I can't understand you. which is kind of a horrifying thing that you're basically trapped inside of your body. And this whole sequence plays out. There's a very interesting where different people come and visit him in the hospital, and because they believe that he can't see or hear or understand them, they say a lot. And one of the people that shows up is a detective. And the detective says, I'm a homicide detective. And the nurse goes, well, this guy wasn't, clearly he's still alive. This wasn't a murder. And the guy's like, it's only a matter of time before he dies. I'm already on the case.
Right.
So that a little bit freaks out the guy who's laying in the bed.
Yeah, that's scary.
But this goes on to find out that something happened that the man in the bed doesn't quite remember, and he's trying to piece together the story while he's laying there in his own mind. This goes off to some very interesting places where it deals with astral projection. The medium from the beginning may be trying to reach out to him, and it seems like that it doesn't get into too much in the first issue, but there is he's going to be trying to solve his attempted murder in astral form, but there's also someone hunting him that has a very cool costume design that you can kind of see on the cover. But I don't know. It was definitely it took a minute to get my head around what was going on because it did switch perspectives quite a bit. But by the end of it, I was very interested in this whole situation. I thought the idea of kind of trying to solve your own attack or murder in astral projection form is super interesting. And maybe he's not the only person who's astral projecting and having an out of body experience. Maybe he can see everyone else who is at the same time. So, really, really interesting. We do have a variant cover for it. This is the 1 in 15 Charlie Adler variant. You could, if this part wasn't in color and the title wasn't on there, you could convince somebody that this was a panel from Walking Dead.
One of my favorite things about any story where somebody's a ghost or something like that, like astral projection, is they get to hear what everyone else is saying. They get to be in rooms. They get to be a fly on a wall. Yeah. That's always fun if the writer can handle that sort of challenge.
There's even some people that show up, like his partner from his, the firm that he works at, that says some stuff, and he's like, that's really weird. Why would he say that? So you've already kind of got these, like, suspects along the way that's like, why did they say that? Why, because they're just speaking because they don't think he can hear them. So really interesting, Out of Body #1 from Aftershock.
Okay, so I read... Oops, I'm grabbing the wrong one. Next up for me is I read the Iron Man Annual #1, which this is the first part of Infinite Destinies. So even if you're not reading Iron Man, if you're interested in the Infinity Stones, this might be a good one to pick up. It's going to be an 8-issue event, sort of. It runs its way through 8 different annuals, which I guess the important part of it is, where are the Infinity Stones? Who has them? Because Marvel is claiming they're coming back to the Marvel Universe. They're going to do something with the Infinity Stones, and they want to catch up everyone with who has them and what's going on with them. So in this first issue, Iron Man goes up against somebody who has the Quantum Stone. Quantum Stone is the one that lets you teleport. In fact, the villain's name is Quantum. So it's the first appearance of a villain named Quantum because he has the Quantum Stone and he can teleport. But before that, it starts with Iron Man. He is actually teaming up with Miles Morales because there are mole men. Like the Mole Men King and all that from Fantastic Four. Well, mole men are all in New York, and they're all going crazy, and they're all over the place. So they go to stop them, but are they there for nefarious reasons or something a little more silly? I'll just tell you, it's something a little more silly. It's more of just the setup for the issue. So after they get past that, which I'll tell you, I did like that part. It was a fun part. Miles tells Tony about how he had been abducted previously by the Assessor. And if any of you have been keeping up with Miles, this happened back in issue 7 and 8 of Miles Morales, but it's come to fruition now with the clone saga that's began with issue 24 and 25. The Assessor took Miles and he wanted to experiment on him because he was from this different reality. He pretty much tortured him with science, and it's really traumatic for Miles. He tells Tony this, and Tony's like, you know what? I don't like that. I'm gonna find this assessor and I'm gonna beat him down. So that's what the issue really is about. Tony goes after the assessor, who is this very powerful villain. He's not been in a lot of stuff. He's a really interesting villain, though. And the assessor happens to have Quantum working for him, sort of his bruiser.
Mm.
So basically, Tony Stark has to beat this guy who has tons of power, who easily was able to defeat Miles, and who has a servant who can teleport around. Also, can teleport his punches wherever he wants to teleport.
That's helpful.
So by the end of it, you definitely learn who ends up with the Infinity Stone. You have a good story on top of that. Then there's a backup story with Nick Fury. There's sort of this Nick Fury story going on. It promises it's going to reunite him with Coulson, who, of course, has been dead for a long time. So that's what's going on in Iron Man Annual #1, the first part of Infinite Destinies. Because Infinity Gauntlet was my favorite event growing up, I have to read all the Infinity stuff. I do. I read all the Infinity things, so I'm going to be grabbing all these for that reason. And I had a good time with this one. It was pretty good. So here is the Ron Lee variant. Then we have the Charist variant. And lastly, can you guess who did this one? There's Deadpool there. The Rob Liefeld variant for Deadpool's 30th anniversary.
Cool.
Oh, I do have one more.
Oh, yeah.
There's a 1 in 25 Robertson variant that we are selling for $25. You see those Infinity Stones.
Mm-hmm.
Top and center.
Well, another book that came out this week that wanted to mention is Amazing Spider-Man. This is number 67, and this is the first part of the Chameleon Conspiracy. So, I won't go into too much detail about this because a lot of it hinges on people who have been reading Amazing Spider-Man up until this point. But really interesting. So, the focus of this is really on Spider-Man's or Peter Parker's parents. This kind of on again, off again storyline involving them and what their profession was. Maybe it was more than kind of meets the eye.
Right.
Were they secret agents? There's a lot to it. Now Peter Parker has a long lost sister who is also kind of a secret agent. So this involves a lot of them. And without giving too much away, there is a character revealed in this towards the end that has not been seen since 1968. And it's funny because I couldn't believe this character hasn't been seen since, because they play a big role in the life of Peter Parker's family. And it seems like somebody I thought every old character had been dug up by this point and used in some capacity. But I think this is going to be a pretty key issue for that fact, bringing a character into the forefront. What does it have to do with Chameleon? Because Chameleon's in it. Can you really trust anybody as who they say they are? I don't know. It's really interesting. You can tell it's just the beginning of this story arc they're going to be doing, but it teases a lot of big reveals for Peter Parker and Spider-Man. So just briefly want to touch on that. I don't know if it would be the best jumping on point for someone who hasn't been reading Amazing Spider-Man, but I do think if you are someone who is familiar enough with the characters and you like kind of jumping into a interesting story, definitely check out Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah, and I will also say about this character from 1968. After Andy read it, he ran to our back issues looking for, this is the hint, he was looking for Amazing Spider-Man Annual #5.
Yeah.
That's what he was looking for. That's all we'll say.
I was going to show it off, and all I could find was #4. Was the closest one I could find. So.
Yeah. So, okay. I read Crush and Lobo number 1 of 8. This is an 8-part series. Crush has been around now for quite some time. I've been reading about her since she appeared in Teen Titans. Lobo also appeared in Teen Titans later, trying to kill her. He was not happy as a dad. He likes to be the last Zarnian. He pretty much completely disowned her, uh, beat her up, beat her friends up. It was not a nice situation. So, how can they have a series together? I'm here to tell you a little bit about that. Because I have to say, this was very much a setup issue.
Mm-hmm.
It's very Crush heavy, very Lobo light. So, if you're looking for a lot of Lobo, he's just in it towards the end. He's with the promise he's going to be a lot more in it going on.
Mm-hmm.
But the way they left things off, I don't know how they would start with them just being together. So, in this, we get the first appearance of Crush's girlfriend, Katie. So that's the first appearance if you want to collect them all.
Yeah.
Katie is very normal. Okay, like you wouldn't expect Crush to be with a girl that is this normal, but you know how it is sometimes opposites attract. Katie's family is very normal, and her friends are very normal. So Crush is really worried that she's going to screw things up because that's just what she
Understandably.
does. Yeah, I mean, she gets angry easy. She kicks things into space. Anyway, she has to go to Katie's birthday party, her girlfriend, and she's all hoping she won't mess things up. She won't say the wrong thing. But this is a bunch of like very straight laced people. And that's just not Crush's thing.
Mm.
So I won't tell you what happens, but it goes all wrong. I mean, it's as bad as it can be. Let's just say that. It's maybe worse than it could be. She screws things up, so she heads home to mope. Red Arrow comes over from Teen Titans to try to talk her out of it. Seeing how she's moped is really fun. How does a half Zarnian feel bad for themselves after several days? What does their house look like? What have they been eating and doing? Anyway, Crush reveals to Red Arrow that Lobo has sent her a message. And I mean, this is totally not like him to do this with her. And in the message, he's in prison. He's in a space jail, and he's been having to see this psychiatrist who he mentioned that he had a daughter. And the psychiatrist has told Lobo that he thinks it would be good for him if Crush would come up to the prison and for them to have sessions together. And Lobo says, "Look, I know I've been mean. I've changed. You should come and do this." He.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can't guess if I mean, he's got to be up to something.
Yeah.
He's got to be up to something. So that's the most I can say. I mean, I've already maybe even said too much because this is very much a setup issue. I wish number 2 is already out. I want to see where it goes.
Mm-hmm.
The stuff with Crush was fun, but let's get them together. Let's get the this
Get the
weird
family
mismatch
together.
going on. So here is the variant. This is the Yoshitana Pride Month variant with Crush and Katie.
First cover appearance.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, another one. Another DC book this week, Green Lantern number 3. So, definitely want to talk about this one because of the events that happened in the previous issue. A lot of very shocking things, like the Green Lantern power battery that is kind of the core of all of the lanterns got destroyed. There's a lot of mystery around kind of what's been going on in the Green Lanterns. Are they even needed anymore? I mean, the Lanterns are in a very low spot right now. When this happened, part of the team of Lanterns have gone out into the galaxy to kind of explore and find out this new infinite frontier that has been revealed. All these new planets that have appeared and universal weirdness. But I will say this issue actually begins in a high school classroom with Jon Stewart and his classmates being Kilowog and all the other Lanterns. It is a very, very funny scene, a very kind of, what do you call those intros that are kind of like drop you in? It confuses you and you're like trying to get your bearings, and it's really interesting though. It's really funny because of course like Kilowog's a big tough guy with his leather jacket on and stuff in high school. Jon Stewart knows this isn't right, But there's a very weird kind of mental trip that John Stewart goes on where he's in high school, he's out in space, but suddenly he can't breathe. People are changing around him. Very interesting things going on with John Stewart in this, and um, the I don't want to give too much away, but there is a lot kind of talked about that may be related to the future state Green Lantern. I'll say that. So if you read the future state Green Lantern, you know that we found John Stewart and some of the other lanterns on a planet, right. No rings.
Yep.
They were very kind of I don't know,
sort of military.
Military. I want to say like Bad Batch type thing. So there is some hints to that. I feel like saying too much would give away the in between of that, but it's really cool to see stuff embracing what happened in Future State. And I feel like Green Lantern, Batman, those are some that are definitely doing a lot of calls to the big events that happened in Future State.
They set Future State up at least 20 years in the future, but I think they're heading towards it sooner.
Yeah.
I mean, and when you have fictional worlds and you write, you can do that. You can say this is 20 years later, and then 12 issues later, oh, you're there.
Yeah, and I'll say some time passes in this issue too. John Stewart is somewhere for a pretty long time, and he's not using his ring a lot. I'll say that. So, anyways, this also does have a I wouldn't even call it a backup story. It's kind of a B story that follows Joe Mueller, the Far Sector Lantern, and Teen Lantern. A lot of stuff that's also going on back on Oa since the power battery got destroyed. So, really cool issue of Green Lantern. I feel like this is a big book to watch because it is moving the dial forward in the story of DC pretty far. We have this awesome Hitch variant as well that has some of our newest lanterns on it together, which that scene does happen. So really, really cool.
So this week there is a new book out from Dark Horse called The Worst Dudes. I believe this is an ongoing series, and on the cover you see the three main characters who I presume to be the worst dudes. I'll say this, they do not get along. So what's going on? The one character there wearing orange, he is a dirty cop. And he is hired by a goddess, I kid you not, to find her sort of half-daughter who is doing some really messed up things. She sends him with her son, who is a god. He's the one in the blue sort of cape thing with the gold. And they team up with the lion-looking guy who is a backup dancer, singer for a band for a certain reason. So really mismatched pair of people. And what else I'll say about it is nobody in this comic is heroic. There aren't any heroes in this. The world they're in is very dirty, corrupt. It's full of drugs and full of swearing. And it's one of these comics where everyone's going to just say whatever messed up thing comes into their head. And you're either going to find it funny and charming, or you're going to go, nah, I want, my more traditional comic. So that's my quick review of The Worst Dudes.
Do you think it's along the line? We've seen a lot of these with year or two ago, Sharky the Bounty Hunter.
Yeah, we have
Scumbag, Space Bastards. Like we have this is like a certain intergalactic. I feel like the grandfather of them all is Lobo.
Yeah.
Like Lobo is the
There you go. Right. Yeah, I just talked about Lobo and Crush. So I think it does lean that way.
Yeah, if you have liked probably some of those previous ones, you might want to give this one a try.
Yep, and no variant cover, so that is it.
Cool.
Short and sweet.
Let's see, another...
Oh, let me cut back in one last time. I forgot to show off, Crush and Lobo has this 1 in 25 Ward variant.
It's a really cool one.
That we're selling for $30 for anyone who's a Lobo fan. Yeah, I missed that earlier.
Real quick, I wanted to touch on Firepower. This is number 12 this is a key issue. It's a exercise issue because it's been 1 year
Yep.
since Firepower started. It feels like 10 years ago, and also feels like yesterday. So this kind of wraps up the first year of the story arc too. You could definitely read this issue and be like, well, that was good. It's all done. But there are some hints to where this series is going forward. Um, I will say that you find out in that room in the martial arts kind of Shaolin monastery where a guard has been guarding the door for centuries because there is a dragon behind it. You go beyond that door and you find out, is that true? Is there really a dragon there? What is up with this? So there's a lot of really cool stuff in this. It is not quite the like blow your socks off what you would think is like a final issue, because it's not. It is continuing in just a month. So, but it does tie up a lot of the story so far, and apparently it's going to go in some pretty crazy places coming up. Another reason we wanted to talk about this is there is a ton of variants for it. I'll go through really, really fast. So we have the Kira uh, Okimoto Pride variant.
It's not a name I recognize.
Mm-mm. There is the Simon DeMio variant.
We know DeMio.
Yep. There is the Kari Randolph variant. I feel like I'm doing the intro to Saturday Night Live. Starring Tula Lotte. We have Eric Larson. We have Frank Quitely. We have Todd McFarlane. We have Rob Liefeld. Then we have the Lee variant.
I wonder if it's one for every month
I
Firepower's
know.
been out.
And then a big one, Frank Miller variant. And then we have a 1 in 25 black and white McFarlane variant that we have for $30. And then we have, which I'm sure someone is going to claim really fast, this is the 1 in 25 Frank Miller variant, which is one of his best covers of recent memory for $30. So hopefully, if you didn't get a good look at those covers, maybe pause the video and inspect them or go look them up. But there's a lot of variants for Firepower.
Okay, also out this week at whatever stores you can find it at. Batman Fortnite 0 Point number 4. This has the code in it that a lot of people have been going for, but I'm going to talk about the story. So now that Batman is out of the time loop and is able to talk, he runs into all the other characters who are also out of the time loop, including Catwoman, which we know because he sent her out of the time loop, Deathstroke, Harley Quinn, and many other DC characters. But on top of that, there's a lot of Fortnite characters who also somehow were in that place at the exact time the storm happens where they got out of the loop. Well, some of these characters have been there for a very, very long time, and they pretty much tell Batman, there's no way out of here now. There are things in here that we can't get into, but there's no way out. And pretty much Batman tells them what I thought the second I read that, which is, hey, y'all probably did the best you can, but you have one new thing. I'm here. Batman is here.
The ultimate
correct
skeleton key.
So
for
needless to say, by the end of this, Batman does some stuff that they couldn't all do combined in months and months and months. Let's just say there is some Fortnite lore that is going to be revealed in this. You can tell it's coming up. You can tell they're getting to the kernel of what is Fortnite. Mm-hmm. So by the end of this, people who are interested in that, you're going to find that out. And I think that's going to make these issues sort of endear past just the codes. Mm. Here is the variant by Dan Mora.
One of my favorites. It's great. Dan Mora drawing Batman is so good, like in Detective Comics. New one out this week, which really excited for. Batman, The Adventure Continues, Season 2, Number 1. This is really cool. If you read the first season, this is co-written by Paul Dini of the original Batman the Animated Series fame. Ty Templeton does the art, who did some of the original show. So very nostalgic to even just look at this book. But this is really cool because it is bringing the Court of Owls, the famous Scott Snyder story Court of Owls, into the Batman animated universe. But not it's not just a like retelling of that story. There is definitely a lot change, and one of the key ones is Deadman is involved in this. And what I think is funny is if you know the Talons, you know they're kind of undead. They're these like part of the family of the Waynes and the Cobbs and all of those that have been like cryogenically frozen. So Deadman can jump into any living body. Well, what happens when he tries to jump into a dead Talon? Pretty interesting stuff. So if you like the first series, you'll definitely like this one. It's so much fun. It is just kind of so familiar if you were a big fan of Batman the Animated Series. It's got some really cool covers. The Andrew McLean cover of Headlopper fame. Really interesting to see some mainstream stuff. And we have a 1 in 25 Amanda Connor variant with Ivy and Harley and Catwoman. And we are selling for $25.
Okay, the last one I have to go over today is The Next Batman Second Son, number 3 of 4. So this is the penultimate issue of Next Batman Second Son, which goes more into the origin of Timothy Fox, or rather Jace, as he calls himself now. So this issue, you get to the crux of what did Timothy do. I guess I'll call him Jace, since that's why I think he's going to be called from this point on. It's just everyone calls him Timothy in this because it's his origin.
Yeah.
But what did Jace do in his youth that was so terrible that he had to flee the country, that he changed his name, that he doesn't like to talk about? Clearly, it's something he's very guilty about, and that the Foxes have been trying to cover up with their money. You learn what that is in this issue. Also in this issue, you get the first appearance of Vol. That's V-O-L. Vol has been a voice that has been talking to him. It's sort of his handler character. It's sort of his oracle. You get to briefly see who that is. Let's see, what else happens in this issue? This is more of a family and crisis drama series than it is a superhero title. That's what I'll say. If you're looking for Batman action, there is next to none in this. This is definitely, I guess, Jace has made some major mistakes in his past that will shape his time as Batman that John Ridley wants to explore before making him Batman. There's only one issue left, and this issue leads off where it looks like he's finally going to go into training. So maybe the last issue will have a lot of the training, but that's generally what's going on in this one. It has a variant. This is the Benjamin variant.
Cool. So, talk about these real fast, because there's just a couple little things I want to say about them. We have Justice League. This is number 62. You think I would write these numbers down so I don't have to always look. This issue 62. We've been waiting for Hippolyta to join the team. I'll say this is the issue where she not officially joins, but she joins them. But a really interesting conversation between Hippolyta and Flash, which if you wonder about who Hippolyta would go to of the Justice League to talk about her daughter, Wonder Woman, you wouldn't always think maybe the Flash would be the first person she would go to, but a very cool interaction between them that explores the character a lot, and you see why Hippolyta is going to be a member of the Justice League in this. There is a variant. It's the Howard Porter variant. And then real quick, I wanted to mention one thing about Batman Catwoman. This is number 5. Wow, already at number 5. This is really cool. If you haven't been reading this series, you know, it's taking place in 3 different time frames. But the key thing I want to say about this one is Harley Quinn makes an appearance in the furthest time frame, the one where, spoiler, that she has killed Joker in after Batman has died. So Harley Quinn makes an appearance, and she's also aged too, but she has a suit in this, a mask, very creepy. So always wanted to know like new Harley Quinn costumes or
Right.
appearances.
Yep.
This
That
one
is
has
noteworthy.
this one has a really cool one. Also, it's got the really nice Jim Lee variant.
I'm gonna have to crack that open. I want to see that.
Yeah, with Harley on the cover of that one, and the Charest variant with Phantasm. And there may even be a kind of team up between Catwoman and Phantasm in this, which is really, really cool. So, yep, just want to mention that.
Okay, so that is it. That is our show. Another long one.
That was a long one, but a lot to go over.
A lot to talk about. That's right. So thank you very much for joining us. I hope we have been both entertaining and enlightening. I hope that when you go in your comic store tomorrow or whatever day you do, that you now know a little bit more about these issues and what you're going to want, what you're not going to want.
Be better prepared.
That's why we do this.
Yes.
That is why we do this. I'd also like to say, if you watch on YouTube, thank you very much. We have crested 900 subscribers. Our goal is to reach 1,000 subscribers. So thank you very much. We just need our last 100 now.
Yeah.
It's been going fast.
It has been. I mean, it's just been like a year, really, since we've started in this. So.
And I mean, comics, as awesome as they are to us and as many people like it, it's still sort of niche. So we'll keep doing the videos. You keep watching and discussing them in the comments. And we'll be back on Friday with comics from the future.
Yes.
So we will see you then.